I'm a medical student and I just took what might be the hardest exam of my life. So for those of you who are new to this channel, I'm Irvin. I'm one half of the Foods and Medicine, and essentially we run this page, this platform that we created called Foods and Medicine, where we have taken people along with us on our journey to becoming doctors. Both of us are the first in our family to, even graduate high school, go to college, and now, we're in medical school. For those of you who have been following our journey, you know that I just took step one, which is one of my medical board exams, the first one, and arguably it's the hardest one. And in this video, I just want to go over my experience. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm probably not going to edit this that much. I want to just be as straightforward with you as possible, as transparent. My goal has never been to sort of paint this picture of or glorify what medicine is like. My goal has always been to, show how it is, and unfortunately that also means like some of the harder things. So I really just want to be straightforward with you guys, transparent, and let you guys know how it really is. Obviously, to me, medicine is a very rewarding career, and there's nothing I would want to do, nothing else I would want to do. So I come from a background of poverty, of not education. You could say I'm disadvantaged or underserved. And obviously from our backgrounds, we really don't see many people that look like me or like my friend Alexis, who runs this page with me. You don't really see people like us in medical school, in medicine, who are doctors. But even with that, I feel like my goal is not necessarily to recruit people to medicine, or you might hear out there like, oh, we need more, whatever. And yes, we definitely do. There's a lot of demand, especially given that the people that come from disadvantaged backgrounds are the ones that tend to serve in disadvantaged backgrounds. However, my goal really isn't to recruit people to go off to medical school. My goal with our platform is to inspire and empower others, especially people who come from similar backgrounds as us, to essentially pursue their dreams, whatever it is, and basically the goal, the bottom line is like, you can do whatever you want, and even though we are very underrepresented in certain fields, you can still make it happen, whether you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or run a business or whatever it is out there. Really my goal is just share with you the adversities and the challenges that I face and how I overcame them, and hopefully that helps you out, in whatever you're going through. But anyways, I'm gonna just get to it. I think I might be rambling a little bit, but I'm just gonna try to be as transparent as possible, whatever that means. And this is not scripted by any means as well, so really I just want to kind of use this to update you guys and let you know how everything went. So before I really get into how the test day went, I'm just gonna give a little bit of background of what led up to that. But essentially, I spent the last 3 months studying for this exam. That was the entire summer, and I averaged about 12 hours a day. Obviously, some days it was a little bit less, and some days was a little bit more. I did have days where maybe I had a half day where I studied 6 hours. That was pretty rare, but I also had days where I studied more than 12 hours. I remember specifically there was maybe a handful of days where I studied from 6 a.m. until 1 a.m. So that definitely happened. But overall, you guys, that was a very difficult time for me. I feel like I've gone through a lot. I've gone through enough to the point where I feel like I'm a very mentally strong and resilient individual. But this exam broke me down, you guys. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm someone who doesn't really express themselves emotionally too much. For example, I don't really cry that much. But dang, this exam had me breaking down a lot, and I probably cried more than I ever have in my entire life. I had days where I'm literally just there studying, having taken an entire practice exam or something, and feeling okay, finally, I hope, I know I learned a lot, I'm expecting this to go well, and then coming out of that just at a really low, with a really low score, or with a score that I just wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I was just like, dang, like I just felt like at some point it was almost like I just kept digging and digging and digging, but there was like no end, you know. Um, it just felt like I was making no progress, and like, wow, like that really messed me up mentally. Like, you know, to go through a, you know, I don't even know, like 70 hours, 70, 80 hours of just straight up studying for one exam in 1 week, and then at the end of the week seeing that your score at least has made no progress. It's just, it just felt disappointing, and I think I was really hard on myself. But eventually I got to a point where I was about a month out of my exam, and I finally passed a practice exam. And the way this works is they give you a percentage, like likelihood of passing if you took the exam within a week. So they have an entire algorithm and stuff that kind of helps them calculate how likely students are to pass. And essentially it told me I was like 98% or something like that, like chance of passing, and I was about a month out. So man, like when I got that, like wow, like damn, there again, like I literally cried, you guys. I looked at my score and I was like, wow, like holy crap, like finally, like I felt like so much relief. There's so much work going into this, and finally it's showing, you know, on my score. And so I after that I kind of told myself, wow, maybe I can move my exam up closer, you know, take it sooner. If I'm already at 98% chance of passing, like why not just do it sooner? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take one more exam and see how that goes. And I think because I had this sort of pressure on myself to take the exam sooner, I went super hard, y'all, like extremely hard. Like I know I've been doing 12-hour days, but at this point I was doing like average probably 15, 16 hours every day, like with barely any breaks, you guys. Like I would get up and like run to the kitchen and just like heat up some food and just eat it and go back, like go straight back to studying without an actual break. I would choose not to eat so that I could study more. And it was just like that. And I feel like I pushed myself so hard to the point where, you know, it was actually like detrimental to my learning. And so a couple of days later, I took another exam and I went down. My score went down. And I was like, okay, like I reviewed it and I'm like, I made a lot of mistakes. I think I could get, I think I still have it in me. Like, you know, I made a lot of mistakes in this exam, but I still passed it. And I still had like 80 something% chance of passing. But I was like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm going to keep working. And I went back to it, back to the same grind, going super hard. And then I was at a point where like I could no longer sleep. Like every time I went to bed, like, oh, I would just have all these thoughts like on these random like chemicals and biochemical pathways and random medications and random mechanisms of actions and random diseases. Everything was just running through my head the whole time I was trying to sleep, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. And like I would just be in bed the entire night, just tossing and turning. And I became so desperate. Like I completely stopped drinking any caffeine whatsoever. I made it so that 2 hours before bed, like I wouldn't look at a single screen. I got like earplugs, like these ones. Got some earplugs. Got blackout curtains. Got a face mask for sleeping. You know, just make sure I didn't see anything. You know. I was on melatonin. Everything. I literally tried so much to try to calm myself down before bed, and I just couldn't. And I went a couple days without being able to sleep. And then my next practice exam after that, like I didn't sleep at all, like I said. And dang, like I went down so much. Like I went to like 50%, like which is like a maybe 30% chance of passing. And it was just a sharp decline. And oh man, like I just felt like I don't even know what to do anymore. Like I worked so hard. I put in so much time into this. I like gave up my entire summer. Like my health, I did not feel well. I was not exercising. I was tired all the time. I was not eating. And it's like, for 50%, like, come on, like, that's not even worth it. And so then I was just like, shoot, like, I can't move this exam. I can't take this exam sooner because of how bad this is going. And so I decided to keep my original date. And I think that took off some of the pressure and anxiety. At this point, I had realized that I had only had 2 days off during this entire summer. One was when I went to VidCon, and the other was just a random day. And those were the only 2 days off I had taken this whole time. And so I just, I'm always telling people, like, rest if you need to, like, seriously, just don't give up. And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna take a day off. And I mean, technically I still studied. I studied from like 6 a.m. till like noon or something like that. But to me, it felt like a day off, because then I just took the rest of the afternoon and evening off, and I went to the beach and I just hung out there, and I did everything to just not think about the exam. I watched football. It was like the first week of football, and just did a lot of things to just not even think about the exam. And then that night I went to sleep and I woke up and I was like, what the heck? And I was so surprised because I realized I actually slept. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like, it's been days. Like, I haven't felt rested in days. This is crazy. So anyways, I kept my original date. I took another practice exam, and I'm back again at like 98% passing. So I'm like, yes. Like, I'm back to where I was before, thankfully. And then I took another practice exam, and then I went up. And so at this point, I'm like, yes, like, hell yeah, like, everything's going well, like, I'm able to, I'm passing these exams, I'm doing better, I'm improving, all these things. And then the week of it, so I'm like, I know I'm ready. Like, I know I have what it takes to pass this exam. All I need to do is sleep. All I need to do is go in there with confidence, get the rest I need, and just perform. Like, it's no longer about whether I know this or not. It's about whether I can perform. And so the week of, about 3 days before the exam, I was doing all these things to try to keep my mind off of the exam at nighttime. But again, I was being haunted by all these thoughts of the exam, all the content I was going over. I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I didn't sleep for the 3 days leading up to my exam. And eventually I just got a hotel over where my exam was at. The day before my exam, I went there and just spent the night. Even though it wasn't that far from here, I was spending all day in my room, and I really wanted to just create that separation between my bed and my work area. And so I went to that hotel, and I purposely was like, I'm not going into that room, I'm not touching that bed until I'm ready to go to sleep. So I just hung out, I chilled, I went to a hot tub, I just relaxed, and then went up there for bedtime. Unfortunately, it still didn't work out, it still wasn't enough, and I didn't sleep at all the night before my exam. So, I don't know, I just felt so beat up by all of this, and just so disappointed. I don't know. I didn't know how to feel about it. Like, I feel like I worked so hard. I knew I had what it took to pass the exam, but based off previous practice exams, when I wasn't able to fall asleep, like, I did really poorly. And so I went into my exam with like no rest at all. And I think it was 3 or 4 days without sleeping, like maybe like an hour or so a night where I could actually where I actually maybe slept a little bit, but other than that, it was just a whole night of just tossing and turning. Took the exam, and wow, I felt like it went extremely horrible, you guys. Many questions where I was just like second guessing myself and changing my answer. And then I was extremely sleepy during the exam too. Like, I took my breaks and I just like would close my eyes and try to take a nap, but even then I couldn't. And I just went through that exam feeling like, wow, like this, I definitely failed it. And after the exam was over, I went over to a like fast food restaurant. I ordered some food, and then I just sat there, like, think for 2 hours. I sat there just looking up a bunch of things that I remembered from the exam, maybe like a solid 50 questions that I remembered. And I just kept Googling them. I mean, not Googling them. I just kept looking them up. And I'm like, wow, like, I had that right. And then I changed it to the wrong thing. I just kept really doubting myself for some reason. And I changed my answers so many times to the wrong thing. So I was like, I'm convinced at this point that I for sure failed it. I don't know. Like, in the middle of the exam, I was just thinking about kind of what my backup is. Like, maybe even like consider changing my specialty. Like, I just had all these random thoughts racing through my head, even in the middle of the exam, because I felt like I was so convinced that I failed. Anyways, I don't get my score back till possibly tomorrow, actually. They say it's 2 Wednesdays after taking the exam, and that would be tomorrow. So I really don't know up until then whether I passed or not. But after talking to a bunch of people, a lot of people said that they felt the same way. Like, they left the exam convinced that they failed, and then they ended up passing. So really, I think I'm really banking off of that. I'm really just trusting my practice scores. But I don't feel great about it, you guys. Hopefully I just happened to do better than what I think I did. But I just didn't feel that great coming out of it. But regardless, you guys, like, I am actually proud of the work I put in. Like, dang, since before medical school, after I took the MCAT and everything and got into medical school, I was always just like, wow, one day I'm gonna take step 1 and I'm just gonna bring my absolute A game. I have to go in there with the right mindset. Like, I know this is gonna be an absolute beast, and I'm gonna give it everything. And I honestly feel really proud of myself because I feel like that's what I did. Like, I worked extremely hard for this. And unfortunately, the way that this test works, I feel like it's not my best learning style. Like, a lot of it requires you to memorize random things, random facts, but also requires you to do a lot of critical thinking, which I love critical thinking. I feel like critical thinking is definitely where I shine. But when you give me a scenario like, this patient comes in presenting with these symptoms, and you think, oh, it must be this being caused by this bacteria. Like, okay, cool. I know what it is. I think I know what it is. I think, I know how to treat it, all this stuff. I know how to manage it. But then when you go ahead and ask me, like, what random, like, structure or whatever is being targeted by the medication being used, then in that case, like, I feel like it becomes more memorization. And I feel like that's where I struggle. And I feel like I got to the point where I knew most of these things, but then exam came and I just, like, second guessed myself, and I'm like, oh, like, I think it's that, like, this random thing I have to recall. I know this is, I don't know, this bacteria, I know how to treat it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then they ask me, like, oh, what's this random virulence factor that's causing sepsis? And I'm like, oh, like, I think it's this one. Like, if I remember correctly, it's this one. But I feel like something's just telling me that it's not. And for some reason, I was listening to that other voice and choosing the wrong answer. And kept thinking, oh, maybe they're trying to trick me. Like, I'm just going to choose this one. Which really, I don't know why I did that. I feel like if I could, I don't know, if I'm rested well and everything, like, I feel like maybe that wouldn't have happened. But at this point, there's really nothing I could do, you guys. I just have to wait and see what happens. I really don't ever want to take this exam again. But if I have to, then I have to. Anyways, I'm extremely thankful for all of you guys who have been supporting me throughout this journey. Obviously, I can't reply to every comment, but, I see as many as I can. And honestly, I'm, like, that kept me going. Like, there was times where I was here, like, feeling super down, and then I would post something and check a couple hours later, and there's like 500 or 600 comments that are super positive, and I just felt like, dang, there's a whole community out there supporting me, a whole village. And really, like, that meant a lot to me, and it honestly helped me push forward, you guys. Like, I really do mean that. Like, I can specifically recall reading comments and being like, dang. Anyways, you guys, that's my experience with this exam. I guess we'll find out soon how it went.